Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast here by Asian Weather Forecast. This is going to be another severe weather update. This is actually going to be for many regions, actually. Today, we have a very widespread threat for severe weather, but our main threat is actually going to be for the Midwest and parts of the plains. So, we do have multiple areas of focuses, including the South Central, the Central Plains, and the Midwest. We do actually have an enhanced risk, and we also have very widespread slight risk as well. So very widespread. We have millions of people under for severe weather today and tomorrow. We have a multi-day threat throughout today and tomorrow that could possibly bring quite the strong bands. Could be seeing some tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds throughout the next coming hours. If you're new to the channel, though, please subscribe. If you're new, of course, I do daily weather forecasts. Let me know if you have subscribed, and that would mean a lot. And also, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Also, be sure to share the video to anybody that you know will be in the severe weather, so they are weather aware. And if they want to subscribe, go ahead and tell them it'll be nice if they subscribe. But without further ado, let's get in this video. So if we look at the National Weather Service, we do actually have severe weather statements across parts of Illinois, near the border with Iowa, near the area there, Davenport. We actually saw some really strong severe weather in some of those areas, but we actually, not too far ago, we actually had severe thunderstorm warnings, and we also have widespread flood advisories and flood warnings across much of these areas. As you see, we do have many flood warnings across parts of Peoria, parts near around Chicago, and other areas near Rockford. We have some flood advisories there, but we do have quite the strong severe weather across these areas. In Davenport, we have the severe weather statement. I see we have very strong bands developing across these parts of the Midwest here. Very strong line of bands across areas of Illinois and Iowa. And it's going to be starting moving down to Wisconsin as well. So Madison, Wisconsin, Freeport, Rockford, areas near Springfield, Lincoln. You guys are going to get starting to get that severe weather very, very soon here. So definitely see the worst of it heading towards this area of Illinois and parts of Iowa, just near the Davenport area. You guys are going to get some really, really powerful bands right there. We'll possibly see severe thunderstorm warnings across these areas by the time I end the video. And then also these very strong bands will start heading to parts of parts of Wisconsin here. So we're going to be seeing parts of Wisconsin, parts of southeastern Wisconsin. You guys are going to get some really strong severe weather. And by Madison, Wisconsin, and other areas of Chicago, you guys can get start to get some severe weather by the time we get in the afternoon hours or late afternoon hours. As we check out the SPC outlook for day 1, as you see, we have a very widespread for severe weather. We have a huge slight risk for part of the north central plains. We also have a slight risk for part of Texas, and we have one for the Midwest. So as you see, we have very widespread areas, but the worst of it will actually be for the Midwest this time, including parts of Iowa and parts of Illinois. So Wisconsin, far southern Wisconsin, parts of north central Illinois, and far eastern Iowa, you guys are under an enhanced risk. That's our highest risk for today. We have a very good possibility and great chance for severe weather across these areas. And we also have 3 other regions. We have 3 regions: the Midwest, the north central plains, and the southern plains, including Texas and parts of Oklahoma, that are under a slight risk. We actually have up to around 9 million people that are under a slight risk. That's including Chicago, Cedar Rapids, Abilene, Gary, and Midland. So very widespread areas. We have Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, parts of Iowa, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, Illinois, parts of Indiana, and Wisconsin that are all under a slight risk. And then we actually have 22 million people under a marginal. We have millions in parts of the Ohio Valley, Mississippi Valley, Midwest, and almost the whole plains. Look, all the way from the Canada border to the Mexico border, we have a marginal risk. That is a very widespread. That's like cross country marginal risk, but actually not this cross country, but this cross country. That's quite actually interesting. 22 million people there, and then we also have our up to around 5.5 million people under an enhanced risk. Would not doubt if we add this enhanced risk more into Wisconsin and closer to Indiana. I think Chicago, you guys will be under the enhanced risk very soon. And I wouldn't doubt that enhanced risk moves a bit more closer to Indiana by the end of the afternoon. We have Aurora, Rockford, Naperville, Joliet, and Peoria under this enhanced risk. Tornado risk is actually very high, actually a 10% chance today. That is a very good possibility for tornadoes. The 10% chance for for the tornado probability on the SPC kind of equals around a kind of a 40% chance in other words, or a 50% chance likely. As you see, we have a very widespread area of 10% chance, including that 5.5 million people in Aurora, Rockford, Naperville, Joliet, and then we have a very widespread 5% chance for parts of the areas and the slight risk for the Midwest. As you see, we don't have a single 5% chance for the other regions. We actually have a highest risk for tornadoes in just in that one little region. As you see, not even Texas and Oklahoma have a 5% chance later today. We actually have our highest for parts of Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa for that severe. Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa under that worst severe weather. But the wind is a smaller threat here for the Midwest at a 5% chance. So not going to be seeing some really strong severe weather related strong winds throughout the whole day, unless you have a very powerful supercell or something like that that does bring in some really cold, that does bring in some really strong wind gusts. The biggest probability for some severe weather related winds is going to be for those other areas that have the slight risk. We have a 15% chance. And that's exactly why that's the only reason why we have slight risk in these areas, because of the hail probability and the wind threat and the wind probability. We do actually have a significant risk for parts of the western plains here. We actually do have a significant risk for hail, and also we have another significant risk for hail as well for part of Texas as well. So that's exactly why we also have a slight risk. But as you see, a very widespread threat for hail across across the U.S. today. As we look into tomorrow, we also have a very widespread threat for severe weather, a very widespread slight risk, including up to 5 million people all the way from the Mexico border to parts of Iowa and to the border of Minnesota. So actually almost a cross-country system there as well, like this. So we do actually have up to around 18 million people for severe weather for marginal. That's including parts of Houston, San Antonio, Kansas City, Wichita, Corpus Christi. And then for the slight risk, we have Omaha, Lincoln, Lubbock, Des Moines, and Amarillo. Tornado threat is a bit lower, only a 2% chance there for those areas for that severe weather, and then the wind threat's going to be at a 50% chance, and hail threat's also 15% chance. So very widespread threats for really wind and hail across the next really 48 hours, but also have that very decent tornado probability for the next 24 hours here, or really the next 18 or 12ish hours, or for the next 12 hours for these areas here. Exactly, but we're going to start seeing severe thunderstorm warnings across parts of Wisconsin and Illinois soon. We're going to see that very strong band crossing the borders, and then we're going to be seeing with all this overday heating, going to be seeing multiple severe weather as well for the western plains, like we saw the slight risk. Going to be seeing some strong wind across parts of Wyoming, but look at this very widespread severe weather across these areas. Going to be seeing really small but powerful band across these areas of the Ohio Valley and Midwest. We can get some quite a strong band across the Midwest today, and it's going to be going through parts of Indiana, and then parts of even Michigan. And then this is exactly why we have a slight risk today. We have very, very powerful bands across these areas for the western plains here today. Very powerful bands moving to near Rapid City today. Even Cheyenne, Bismarck, you guys can get quite a strong severe weather. And then by tomorrow, these same bands from today, we'll start seeing these very powerful bands advancing in the north central plains. So you can see some very strong bands moving near North Platte. Could be seeing some strong bands advancing in parts of Iowa, and then kind of fall apart there. We can get some really strong bands for parts of the north central plains and parts of Dakotas throughout today and tomorrow. As we now look at the severe weather for today, as you see, we also have a slight risk for parts of the areas of Texas here and parts of Oklahoma. We have a slight risk here. Also going to be seeing very widespread pop-up bands across these areas of the south central and just general the U.S. As you see, we have a very widespread general risk for severe weather, really bringing more than 50% of the mainland U.S. under a general risk for severe weather, because all these pop-up bands are likely across many or millions can be seeing pop-up bands throughout on and off today. So as you see, this overday heating is going to continue to become a bit more widespread, increasing that threat for bands just across the U.S. As you see there, we start seeing these strong bands developing later today, all the way to Kansas to parts of Texas. We'll be seeing multiple bands affecting parts of Lubbock, Amarillo, parts near Lawton, Oklahoma. You can get some strong bands. And then by later tomorrow, when we have a slight risk for these areas, as you see, we're going to be seeing kind of weird formation here. You're going to see kind of dipping like this and then dipping like this. A very weird squiggly formation with bands here Going to be seeing these strong bands moving towards Dallas, but they kind of fall apart right before it affects Dallas there. And then we kind of see possibly another severe weather threat, possibly by Monday, actually. So we are going to continue to see this severe weather across these areas. You're not going to be seeing a break from these pop-up bands. This is really showing you how summer is coming, or this summer weather is finally arriving. And we're going to be seeing a everyday basis of pop-up bands across these exact areas. As we look at the Cape values here, we are going to start seeing this amount of energy kind of increasing across these areas in the Gulf. So we're going to see it as this moisture kind of flows a bit more. We're going to start seeing some higher K values, a lot more moisture, a lot more instability, and all the ingredients will be setting in place. But we're going to start seeing some 3,000s across these areas. As you see, we aren't going to be seeing any severe weather threat because we're not going to be seeing severe weather there. This is just showing you how the energy is flowing to Texas. As we now get later, then we start to see this area flow of all this energy. As you see, we're going to be seeing up to 1,500 joules per kilogram for parts of Illinois. Even parts of Tennessee would be seeing around 3,000 joules per kilogram. But look at this part of northern Texas where we had a slight risk, up to 4,500 joules per kilogram. Severe weather threat. As you see, it doesn't say tornado because that's not where our highest tornado threat. As you see, we have a 0 for supercell composite parameter and a 0 for STP and a 0 as cap. So as you see, this can be seeing a severe weather threat, severe weather for parts of the Oklahoma. As you see, you're going to see a bit more of a tornado threat possibility for parts of the Midwest. Going to be seeing 2.9 supercell composite parameter there. Going to be seeing a bit higher of a tornado threat, and definitely seeing just a bit more energy in the Midwest than we usually do. Up to 1,500 joules per kilogram for parts of Indiana. As you see, we are going to be seeing some lower numbers, but a bit higher than they are in Texas, even though they have more energy, more higher Cape values for one region. That exactly mean there is going to be a better, possibly in that certain moment for tornadoes there. And as we now move later into now in the overnight hours, look at this, a huge amount of energy, just a huge blast of energy, up to 5,000 joules per kilogram throughout these areas in Texas. As you see, we actually have still a 0 for anything for supercells or SCP, a marginal severe weather threat, and caps at -4. So not going to be really capping out anything like that. But even portions of Missouri, you guys can be seeing up to 4,400 joules per kilogram there. Severe weather threat there, 5.1 on the STP. So it could be seeing some supercells or a bit of a higher possibility or probability for supercells in that area of Missouri. And as we now get into the area of Kansas, this is where we see that possibly for tornadoes. Tornado threat, as you see, we have a 2.1 in the STP for tornadoes, and it's almost an 18 on the supercell composite parameter. Could definitely see some damaging hail, a -33 on the cap. So that's around a perfect number for parts of this Kansas area in Missouri. So definitely going to see that best chance out there into the Central Plains, and then these numbers kind of die down a little bit as we now move more into tomorrow. As we now look into the supercell composite parameter, as you see, we are going to be seeing kind of lower numbers across the Midwest, though. Going to still possibly see around a 4 on the supercell composite parameter there, and going to be seeing a bit of lower threat there for tornadoes based on the SCP at that moment. Our highest numbers will actually be really not even in double digits, really. Going to be getting up to an 8 at some point on the supercell composite. And as we now move more into the Central Plains by later in the overnight hours, this is when we see their highest numbers going to be a 25 on the supercell composite parameter, guys. As you see, we have a 22 on the supercell composite parameter and a 3.8 on the STP. You have the tornado for a plausible hazard or possible hazard. And as you see, -37 for cap. So very favorable conditions in these areas of Kansas. As we have parts of Nebraska, -21. Also going to be seeing some favorable conditions for tornadoes at a 1 on the SCP, so a marginal tornado threat, and also a 16 for supercell composite parameter. And look at this, -58 for cap. So that's actually almost a perfect scenario at that point. And then we see these higher numbers into tomorrow. That's exactly why I have that slight risk. But let's see, the capping will be a possibility. Capping out, it's going to be at -179. And anything that's not above, if it's above -200, is considered strong. So it's getting close to that point for strong cap there. We also have, but we do have a possibility right before it does cap out. We have a 30 on the supercell composite parameter, SCP of a 4.1 there, and it's just crazy. Possibly have a tornado hazard right before it caps out, and you're gonna see when it caps out here, you're gonna be seeing that big number right there, and it kind of just starts to fall apart because it caps out. You can even see if you go here, it's going to start capping out at this point. It's going to start falling apart. That's exactly why you saw that on the radar. And as we look into the wind shear, the reason why we are seeing that really big severe weather threat for parts of these areas, we are seeing a good amount of wind shear for parts of the Midwest here. Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, moving to parts of Indiana. Could definitely possibly see some decent shear. Obviously, just because we are seeing shear doesn't mean exactly we are going to be seeing severe weather, but we do have a perfect kind of wind shear placement there for the parts of the Midwest. And we have a strong wind shear placement across much of the western United States. And that's going to continue to move eastward and advance, and that's exactly why we'll be seeing that severe weather, that big, widespread, slight risk for parts of the plains. Because look at this, going to be seeing a lot more shear for parts of Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota, Minnesota, and that's exactly why we have that very widespread, slight risk advancing to the east every single day as that wind shear too. As you now look, we don't have any new severe thunderstorm warnings as of yet, but that will very soon possibly change. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and bye guys.